Nebraska week, Adam, and we're going to get into this game a little bit. This is going to be a fun one. You know, you and I were talking like we're kind of done talking about North Dakota State. That one's in the past, but now we got to move on to a big one here, and I'm excited for it. Are you excited to go out to Lincoln?
I am. We talked about it on our analysis video yesterday. This is what college football is about, and I'm probably going to feel a little nauseous from all that red after 3.5 hours. It's a lot, Brian. It's a bright red that they have going on out there. I love the passion of those folks, and I think Colorado fans like to say they're fake nice, but they are nice on some levels. So it is a fun place to go out to, but it is an interesting matchup here. You've got a 19-year-old freshman quarterback in his first game against a power conference defense, and they're favored by 7.5 points. You've got a 22-year-old Shedeur Sanders coming out there, and there was some issues in that opener for Colorado, and I think that they 100% need to play better out in Lincoln this Saturday to win this game than they did in the opener. But I think 7.5 points is a lot.
Yeah, I agree with you. And real quick, that red reminds me of the Seinfeld episode, the Kenny Rogers Roasters. The red coming into Kramer's room. That's how our eyes are going to feel at the end of that game. But there are some things they got to clean up and they got to play better. And just one thing on NDSU that I feel that was a good win for them. That was a nice precursor for this game. I think that was a good game to kind of get them their feet wet a little bit in the trenches, especially. North Dakota State challenged them up front. They're going to get more challenge this week, but they do have to play better. And where do you feel like they have to play better? What areas do you think are you looking at and saying they have to be better here this week?
Defending the middle of the field. Yeah. Both in the run game and the passing game. That was where North Dakota State was making their big plays. This would be a big statement game for this revamped defensive line and as well as the offensive line for Colorado as well. They can go out there because Nebraska, you can say what you want to about that program and them not living up to expectations in recent years. They're still a physical football team. They had a good offensive line last year. They just had horrible quarterback play, and that's really partly why they got blown out here at Folsom Field last year. They have improved the defensive line this year, and so it's a better Nebraska football team than what Colorado faced. So they're going to have to also be, and we do expect them, because they were better in the trenches in the opener than they were last year. So that's the challenge to me. It's in the trenches, and can you stand up to this Nebraska team, because they are pretty good in that facet. This was a Nebraska team that lost 5 games by a touchdown or less last year, and 4 games by exactly a field goal. So there's a reason that those fans are optimistic out there, is because they were close, and now they do have their quarterback of the future, but is he ready to deliver a primetime performance on national TV against a Colorado defense that was a heck of a lot better in the second half in their opener?
Yeah. And this was not one of the games out on this field that they were close. CU blew them out last year. I don't expect the same type of game where CU blows out Nebraska, in large part because they have a better quarterback, in my opinion. I think Dylan Raiola is better than what Jeff Sims was and whoever the backup was last year. I think the Buffs have got to run the ball, and that's going to be talked about a lot until they do it. I think they have to run the ball. They've got to get some yards on the ground and establish some sort of threat on the run game a little bit. And so what do you think about that? I mean, do you think that they have to get a run game going, or can they beat Nebraska without a run game?
I get Coach Prime's point after the game where he said, hey, we had over 500 yards of offense. You're going to take that. And so it's hard to go against that, but as you're going to get into these tougher games against other teams, you're just going to have to be more well-balanced than they were in the opener and than they were the vast majority of last year. And I really do still believe in the running back talent on this roster. And, I've seen some national prognosticators that still think Colorado is really weak in the interior of the O-line. I don't know if that's 100% set, but it's substantially better than it was last year, and it should look that way as we go forward. I really do think that.
Yeah, I agree, and I think that even if those are the 5, I keep saying to people, we have to remember that group has not played together until last week. And not only that, but there's no 2 guys on that line that had ever played a game together. Sometimes you'll have a new line, but like maybe the left side played together last year. But there's no 2 guys on that starting lineup that have been in a game together. And so I think that's one of those areas that's going to improve. I think there's some cohesion you can get in practice. I think you get more of it as games go along. And I think that's a group that can improve dramatically as games go along.
The other part of it, too, is, though, you do want to be balanced, but how are other teams going to slow this passing game down this year if that offensive line just keep getting better, because already what we saw in the opener was better than we saw last year. If that keeps getting better, this is going to be a dynamic offense that Jimmy Horn said it this week. Like, we've got 4 number 1 receivers on this roster, and that's really not a stretch, you know, when you look back at the last 20 years of Colorado football. You know, so the other part of it is, yes, you want to be balanced, but you have maybe the most dynamic passing offense in the entire country right now.
Right. And there's some pretty good number 2 receivers on this team as well.
Yeah.
So we're getting rain now. So let's get to predictions here. What do you think? What's your score prediction? What's going to happen out there?
I've flopped back and forth on this one all week, Brian. I've felt very confidently that Colorado will be closer than 7.5, and people are going to get mad at me. Initially, I picked Nebraska to win by a point, but I've slept on it a couple nights, and as good as Dylan Raiola is and is going to be, this is the biggest stage he's ever played on in his life. And yes, he's more mature than his years, but Colorado is still going to be able to make a couple plays, I think, to disguise some things. And we're going to see Colorado's pass rush a little bit more effective, I think, in this game as well. Last week, NDSU was getting the ball out so quick. You weren't really having much time to get back in the opposing backfield if you're Colorado. So they're going to get better at that, and I think they're going to rattle Raiola just enough to where he makes just enough mistakes for Colorado to win this game. But I really expect a close game. And again, this is a better Nebraska team than what Colorado faced out here last year.
Yes. What's your score?
Let's go 31-28, Colorado.
Okay. I'm right there with you, and I'll add, too, that I agree with all those things you're saying. The other thing that Raiola does not have that North Dakota State had last week is he does not run. He's not a running quarterback, and you go back to even to high school, he had negative yards his last 2 years of high school, so the running threat's not there. Now watch him go, have a couple 20-yard runs, but like he has not shown that he's a running threat. That's what burned the Buffs a lot last week, was that quarterback run. I don't think they have to worry about that as much. I agree with you. I like Raiola. I think he's going to be a really good player, but in this matchup, I'm giving the edge to Colorado because of the quarterback. They got a senior that's been through everything, and I think that makes a difference. And my score that I've said all week is right there with you. I've got 30-27. So, a 3-point game for the Buffs, and I don't care if they win by – I don't think they care if they win by 1, if they win by 20, whatever it is. Just get out of Lincoln with a victory, and a 2-0 start would be really good for this team. That's
going to be the story of this whole season. Maybe not CSU. Maybe you want to – send a message there. But the rest of the games, this is, again, a schedule full of all these coin flip games on paper.
Yeah.
And so Colorado just needs to find a way, like you said, to be 1 point ahead on the scoreboard at the end of it.
Well, especially in a road game environment like that, to expect to go into Lincoln and to throttle them, you can't expect to do that. And they've done it a couple times in recent years, but you've got to go in there and just any way you can get it, just get a victory. So Adam and I will be back after the game to talk about it.